Taoiseach, Cabinet has this afternoon signed off on the deal for the new National Maternity Hospital, and instead of securing a clean-cut transaction where the site comes into public ownership, the deal ensures that the hospital has a private landlord under a very convoluted ownership model. This is the wrong decision, Taoiseach. It falls short of protecting the state's proposed investment of between 800 million and €1 billion of taxpayers' money. It's obvious that the best way to safeguard this investment and to allay public concern is for government to secure the transfer of the land into state ownership, a clear and explicit agreement that ensures that we get a publicly built national maternity hospital on publicly owned land. I asked you several times, Taoiseach, together with the Taoiseach and the Minister for Health, to get around the table with the St Vincent's Health Group to convince them to agree to that transfer. I believe that such a high-level government initiative would have yielded success. Yesterday at the Health Committee, the St Vincent's Health Group confirmed that the Sisters of Charity transferred the land to the group without precondition. That means that there was and there is no legal barrier to the land transfer. It is entirely within the gift of the group. Yet, it transpires that far from proactively seeking the best outcome, you and your government made no real effort to secure state ownership of that land. Last week, Minister Donnelly told the Dail that he had formally requested that the land be transferred to the state. However, what the chair of the St Vincent's Health Group told the Oireachtas Health Committee yesterday directly contradicts the Minister. Mr Menton said the last time the state directly engaged with the group as regards bringing land into public ownership was 5 years ago, and it gets worse, Taoiseach, because Mr Menton also said that the group has received no correspondence from yourself as Taoiseach requesting that the land be transferred to the state. This is something that you later confirmed to the media. So we now know that neither you nor the Minister for Health made any serious, any meaningful effort to bring this land into state ownership. And you came in here and told us that such a transaction wasn't possible, but the truth is that you didn't even bother to ask. And now you sign off on a deal that fails to provide the best protection for almost €1 billion of taxpayers' money, a deal that copper fastens an ownership model whereby a critical piece of public infrastructure has a private landlord. Everyone in the Dáil wants this hospital, we want it built quickly, and we want a new departure in maternity care. And I absolutely accept your bona fides in all of those regards, Taoiseach. But what's at issue here is the failure of your government to secure the land in public ownership. And this is big stuff, Taoiseach. The contract you signed locks the state into a deal where the state does not have ownership of the site for the National Maternity Hospital. So I would like you to directly explain why neither you nor the Minister for Health made any real or any significant effort to secure state ownership of that land.
Very much. I'll put this to you, that when this hospital gets built, and it's a good decision today for the women of Ireland and for newborns into the future, that we will have a new maternity hospital and a new neonatal centre of excellence in public ownership, in state ownership for the next 300 years. And that when that happens, and when it's proven to be such, that you and your party will have the good grace to acknowledge that indeed is the case, and that you won't try and erase from the public memory your ongoing downright opposition to it. Because it's my sincere belief that this will be a hospital that will serve the interests of women in Ireland for decades to come, facilitating all legal and lawful services to be permitted there. And it's in state ownership. 300 years at a tenner a week. And no matter how often you try and tell a different story or spin it or try and present it as not being state ownership, you are wrong. By any yardstick, by any legal analysis, you are wrong on that one. in terms of the ownership issue. And it's precisely when I said to the Minister, in terms of the negotiations with St Vincent's Group, it's gone from 99 years with an option of 50 more on the lease to 300 years. And in July of last year, the Secretary-General of the Department of Health wrote to the Chairman of St Vincent's University Holdings, Mr Jimmy Menton, making it crystal clear that it was the state's objective and desire to have outright freehold ownership, but acknowledged that Vincent's were not going to do that, as communicated to the Minister when he requested that from the Chairman in conversations with the Chairman. And there has been an attempt to try and undermine the nature of the freehold lease, and some of it early on didn't last too long. So you attempted early on, Deputy, and others to say, oh, it's actually 850,000, not a tenner. But when you look a small bit to the detail, you find it's 850,000 if you don't build a maternity hospital, and if you don't do what we're obliged. There's nothing in the lease that's an imposition on the state whatsoever. Nothing in the lease that is an imposition on the state at all, despite attempts to muddy the waters and deliberately, in my view, confuse that issue. Now, on the broader issue, the concerns that were raised after the Mulvey deal and over a year ago have been comprehensively addressed by this government and by the Minister. First of all, in terms of the constitution of the new National Maternity Hospital, which is absolutely clear in terms of all lawfully and legally permissible services being made available. The licence, the operating licence that will be issued by the Health Service Executive to the hospital, which will oblige the hospital to provide such services, and the Minister then having the authority through the Golden Share to enforce or to ensure that all directors fulfil their duties, and they must comply. They must comply. They're obliged to comply. But the overall motivation behind the government's decision is to provide modern physical facilities that are required now. And I'm struck by the very strong representations that have been made by all the national directors of midwifery across the entire country, representing every maternity unit in this hospital, who said to us, please get on and build a hospital. I'm struck by the National Director of Holles St and all the assistant directors of midwifery at the hospital in Holles St saying, please build the hospital. I'm struck by the 52 clinicians who wrote a letter to us saying, please build the hospital.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
And I accept, Deputy, your concerns were raised. I think they have been genuinely comprehensively addressed.
And I'm struck that you are in any way surprised that there is a widespread clamour, and has been for some time, for proper investment in maternal care, neonatal care, women's health care more generally. Everybody wants that. I can assure you I want that. I want to see the speedy delivery of first-class services of excellence for the women of this country, services that for far too long we were denied. But you ought to be struck by this also, Taoiseach, that there's no doubt in the minds of the St Vincent's Healthcare Group as to who owns the land. They're very clear. They are very clear that they are the landowners. They were also very clear in setting out at committee that there was no meaningful engagement by you, Taoiseach, or by Minister Donnelly to secure state ownership of that land. A simple transfer, which, bear in mind, had been the initial promise. So that is their version of events. I would just like you to confirm for the Dáil, to set out for us what engagement you had, if you claim you had any, to secure this site into state ownership. When did that happen? Are you saying that the chair of the St Vincent's Healthcare Group is in fact incorrect, or that he has misled a Dáil committee?
Yeah, my understanding is the chair is ready to correct the record in respect of that. The chair is ready to correct the record in respect of what I've just said earlier. Okay? So, Deputy, you know, I made the point. I have the correspondence here which has been published, which was written to that chairman as well. But also, I think if you obviously gave very close attention to yesterday's deliberations, and in doing so you would have heard the legal representative of St Vincent's making it very clear that the state will own the land for the next 300 years. And that's the reality. And again, you see, The lease, sorry, we have a lease on this site for 300 years at a tenner a year. And it's as simple as that. And no attempts to cloud that reality in terms of ownership. That is effective ownership by any yardstick. And please stop now. It's time to wrap this part of it up now, because you really are not. The arguments have held up. The arguments presented by government to this have been held up robustly, I have to say. And we have strengthened what was the original position was 99 years plus 50.
Deputy,
it's now gone to 300 years
now,
in terms of the maternity hospital itself.
Thank you.
And indeed,
Taoiseach.
sorry.